So I had a guy reach out to me at the beginning of the week, and he told me that he'd basically lost himself in the last 8 years. He'd become a fraction, a mere idea of who he used to be. In fact, the exact words that he put into the message to me on Instagram was, "I'm a blob." So let's just take a moment to realise that it takes a level of personal courage to announce yourself, in such a derogatory way. So throughout me telling this story, I want you to understand that I've got nothing but love and respect for this person. And in his own words, he'd said to me that he knows in his heart that I am the person to be able to help him transform in his personal life, in his relationship, and in his career. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to share this and why I think it's so poignant. And I'm going to be addressing them, like both of them, quite indirectly, but I'm sure, because you're super fucking smart, you'll pick up on how I do that as I'm telling this story. So the first is being prepared to do things that you don't currently do. And the second is tuning into what your gut is telling you that is right or wrong. Wow. The heavens have just opened up here. It's an insane level of rain coming down right now. So I ended up spending about 40 minutes on the phone with this particular guy, and he opened up. He told me about, his current situation, what he's going through, how he's feeling about it all. And I had a great idea and a great picture already of what we needed to do moving forwards. Experience has a way of guiding your thoughts and exactly what actions you need to take. So the first thing I set to doing was basically creating him like a self-investigation sheet. I spent a few hours putting questions together that would be selfishly really great for me to know, really great for me to understand certain things. And then secondly, for him to be able to spend time reflecting on. Because when it comes to self-communication, if a person hasn't done a great deal of it, or maybe avoids it, when you put someone into a situation of where they have to face those things that are really challenging, it's almost like a vomiting effect that happens, of where when you get a person talking about stuff that they haven't brought up before, when they do start to bring it up, and I don't know if you've ever been sick into your own hands before. I can neither say I have or haven't. I definitely have. And when you've been sick in your hands and you look down, needless to say, it makes you want to throw up just that little bit more. So this is the imagery that I like to use when I'm teaching coaches and people that take care of other people about this level of vulnerability, when we're looking after people. All of that to say, the types of questions and the personal investigative points that I put into the document that I passed to this chap were along those lines. They were there to elicit a personal and internal response. And typically, when I send this type of document to people that want to work with me, I tell them don't rush, take your time. And it'll be anywhere from 2 days to a full week that I will give that person to complete it. I literally don't time it. I just let them come back to me whenever they're ready. Anyway, this particular chap, he actually replied to me within a couple of hours. My gut instinct knew straight away that something wasn't quite right based on the depth and the level of questioning that I went into in the document. And when I opened the document up, essentially he'd used AI to answer the questions. I've got nothing against people using AI. In certain cases, in certain use cases, I do have a problem, and this is one of those situations. And I knew it was AI as soon as I opened the document up. It was super obvious. I could tell by the language and then also the framing of how he was talking about himself. I just knew something was off within the first few lines. So very gently, I'd sort of messaged him back and said, "Hey, I'm hoping that, this is you, but my gut's telling me it's not. How much of it did you write, with artificial intelligence?" And he was very honest. He was very candid and said, "I wrote all of it because, I have a real problem putting pen to paper in order, getting my ideas and thoughts out of my mind." So I told him, I said, you're going to have to go back to ground, do this yourself, take your time, because farming out your feelings and your thoughts to artificial intelligence, that's no good. That information in our relationship in this context, it's useless. And what he said back to me was, I'll really struggle with that, unfortunately. And he even put like a sad face on the end of his message. And I said something along the lines of, look, this is your first test, how to pull yourself together and do a writing task and stop feeling sorry for yourself. I think I also said to him, I said, look, there's no rush. Take your time. But then I followed up with a voice note as well, because I wanted to add some weight. I could tell by the way he'd responded, and he sent a couple of other messages, that I needed to give him something that he could chew down on and gain some deeper context. And just for your understanding, I've actually known this person for over 10 years. So there's an established relationship there. So what I'm about to say next, it wasn't a shocker to him. It was, but in the right way. And I said to him, look, struggling isn't you messaging me from your £1,000 phone to my £1,000 phone, and you having a loving partner that cares about you, and you having someone on this side who cares about, the outcomes that you want, and you're messaging me from a nice warm home with running water and a fridge with food in, and you've got a job and you're very well paid and you're surrounded by people that love you and only want the best for you. I said, struggling, very honestly, is a child losing a parent or both parents in a war zone, and now they've got nobody, and they have to try and figure out how they're going to eat, how they're going to get over the loss, who's safe. That is real struggle. So I said, I need you to pull your socks up and just do the writing task. And he thanked me for that message. He said, thank you for putting that into, some real world context for me. Anyway, long story short, he basically spent the rest of that night doing the task. He stayed up until the early hours of the morning completing it. And when I read it a few hours later, I was pretty bowled over, by what he'd written. It was really powerful. And instead of it talking at me, it was talking to me. I could feel the pains. I could feel the struggles. And was it perfectly curated English, spelling and grammar? No. But that's not what I was looking for. What I was looking for was someone to actually spend the time and the energy pouring their heart into something, bleeding on the page, with what they were currently going through. Because he described himself as being a blob. And in my eyes, when he was using the AI to farm out this work, he was living up to that standard for himself. And he declared in his document that he'd completed for himself that, he avoids doing the hard work. He avoids doing things that mean something to him. And that character flared up with immediate effect. As soon as he was asked to do something that was outside of his little comfort zone, he just quit, like instantaneously. And I wasn't going to stand for it. Simple as that. And I'll be honest, I see this happening everywhere with a lot of people. People wanting transformation without any level of discomfort. People wanting to change without putting effort, time, energy, passion, without having to, bleed on the page. Change without actually changing anything at all. You see, transformation's in the wrestling. It's in the struggle. It's in the pain. It's in the pit. It's in the darkness. That's where transformation happens. Not in the airy-fairy land of let me, wave a magic wand and hope for this dream outcome. It just doesn't play out like that. You have to sit with those difficult questions and force yourself to find words about things you've never had to articulate before. That's where we all stop being a blob and start becoming something else. And he even said, after I'd read it and I messaged him back, he said, you know what, I was forced to sit there and face some stuff that I've not faced for a very long time. I think that's where the juice is in these situations. And he was excited by that. He was energized by that. I could see it and hear it in his tonality and what he was sharing. He could have read a book. He could have listened to a podcast. He could have messaged 1,000,001, other people. But none of that would have changed him. What did change him was sitting alone with his thoughts at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, struggling to find the words to describe his pain, and then despite struggling, he found them anyway. Like, this guy's already a hero of his own story before he's actually even started. That's the work. That's the stuff. That's the juice. So don't put it off. Just get stuck in before you're ready. It'll be the best thing you ever do. I'll see you soon.